Welcome to The Route to Revenue, two entrepreneurs sharing the path to curbside cash flow. I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. We're both founders of two successful recurring revenue businesses in the home services industry, and we've built our companies from startup to profitable and scalable operations.
This is the show for entrepreneurs serious about building sustainable home service businesses. Whether you're starting out, scaling up, or ready to move beyond trading time for money, we share proven strategies for creating predictable monthly revenue streams.
And while our expertise comes from the bin cleaning industry, the systems and principles we discuss work for any recurring revenue home service. Think lawn care, pest control, pool maintenance, and beyond.
Each episode, we break down real-world strategies for customer acquisition, retention, operational efficiency, and building systems that generate consistent income while you step back from daily operations.
Are you ready to transform your home service businesses from a demanding job into a profitable asset? This is The Route to Revenue.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Route to Revenue. I'm Ben McGee with Green Can Cleaner, and I'm here with Mike Walker from Spiffy Bin. How are you today, Mike?
I am doing fantastic. Yourself?
I'm doing amazing.
Awesome. Hey, I'm really excited about this episode. We're going to talk today about a book that I read and have listened to a couple times since, about six or 7 years ago, roughly. And the book is called Profit First. The author's name is Mike Michalowicz, and he does a lot of good books, and he just has a great take on what business owners are missing in their business, and more importantly, in their finances, to make it a business and to make it something that's actually profitable. So I know you've read it before, Ben, and perhaps listened to it. The good thing about the audio book is he is the guy that reads it, or the person that reads it. So he does a lot of ad-libbing. He adds things to it that aren't in the book necessarily, or not in the book at all. And so he kind of has a great take on it. I've had the opportunity to listen to two other books of his since then as well. So it's a great book. I highly recommend you take a look at it and listen to it. And what are your thoughts on the book, Ben?
Yeah, I too read the book and listened to it, and have gone back to it a few times and looked at things. I think that the thing that it does is it's just a common sense approach to business finances that, a lot of times if you're looking at traditional finance procedures, it just doesn't make sense. There's just not a lot of common sense to it. If you're looking at a P&L, it's from last month or the month before or the quarter before. And it's hard to get those things up to date and accurate. And so you don't have a day-to-day accounting method, whereas Profit First actually gives the ability to know what you have in categories so that you can spend it accordingly. Do you want to talk about how that works and kind of give us an overview of the system in general, and then we can kind of dive in a little bit?
Absolutely. I think that's going to be really helpful. So what happens in business is you either, I kind of look at it as you have, like, some people have operator minds and some people have business minds. And this particular method helps the operator perhaps become a business mind, if you will. So effectively what he talks about, what Mike Michalowicz talks about, is you have anywhere from 5 to 7 buckets of money, and a bucket being a bank account. And I can only talk for myself, but this is what he says, and this is what I've done. So I have this. So all of your money comes into one bucket, and that's called the income bucket. And so, I've got I've got 3 Stripe accounts that go into it. One from another business that I bought, and then 2 that I have on mine. So I have jobber payments bucket, and then a regular Stripe bucket, and then I've got this other company bucket money that goes into this bucket. So let's say on the first of the month, you do a lot of your billing. you might have $6,000 that's going to come to you on, say, the second or third, whenever it transfers over to your account. So all of that money goes into an income bucket. Then from there, you set up other not sub buckets, but other buckets, which is basically another bank account. And you'll have an operational expenses. You'll have an employee pay. You'll have an owner pay. You'll have a profit. Well, actually, that's at the end. I have an insurance because I pay my insurance once a year. And so I want to have a bucket that has money. And then at the end, you'll have a profit, account and a bank account. So the idea is twice a month is what he recommends. Twice a month, you take your time and you go, okay, I've got $10,000, we'll say, in this income account, and I want to divvy up, I don't know, 30% to operational expenses. So 3,000 goes to that bucket, and maybe 20% goes to employee pay. So $2,000 goes to that. Profit might be 15%. So 1,500 goes there, different things like that. And the idea is you are creating accounts that you can use, and you are, what he talks about is you are given the permission to spend that money because you have allocated it to that duty, if you will. Is that a pretty good explanation of how you see it?
It is. I think that yeah, the one premise though is that rather than, in traditional finance, what you do is you look at what you make and then you subtract your expenses, and then whatever's left over is what you're left with. So you're basically, as an owner, you're getting the scraps. And so he talks about switching that and saying, okay, I've got my income or my gross revenue, and I take my profit off the top. So that in your example, that 1,500 gets allocated first. Then I worry about how I'm going to pay my bills and provide the equipment and all of that. And so, and I know to a certain extent it's semantics, but I like to think about it that way, that I'm not just getting the leftovers. I'm actually, the reason that I started this business was to provide for me and my family and to make a profit.
Right.
And so I think that it puts that up where it's supposed to be, and it changes a mindset to a certain extent.
And it's also a nice, at least for me too, it's a little red light, green light kind of thing too. Not so much in the profit account, but like say in the operational expenses account, when you're there and you're like, gosh, I really want to buy this other generator and have it on the shelf. Well, maybe it's not time. You got a red light because you don't have enough to do it. But if you look at that account and you got 10,000 in there, that's earmarked for that duty. So it's okay. And that's where we run into problems. Most people in what we do, what we used to do, you run one bank account, and you don't know if there's $40,000 in there. You may or may not remember that next month you've got a $23,000 payment for, Progressive Insurance. And if you don't know you have that coming and you're not ready for it, it's going to be painful, right? So that's where it's helpful for me, is to have these different buckets. Can you do it on a spreadsheet? Of course. Can you do it, a multitude of other ways? Absolutely. But I've found that moving this around, and I do it again just twice a month. Now in the beginning, did I have to rob Peter to pay Paul? Yeah. I was off on my percentages and different things like that. But it was very helpful, and it is very helpful to keep that in mind. So that's kind of the structure of it. How did you start with yours when you started doing it?
So there's been a journey to this for me. So I started the business, and like most business owners, there just wasn't enough. There was more month at the end of the money, it seemed like. Even though it's a recurring revenue business, it still seemed like the first of the month was always just super tight, and it didn't matter what I did. Then I found Profit First, and I started doing these allocations. And unlike you, I probably took it to too much of an extreme, and I ended up with 11 bank accounts at one point. And but I had everything dialed in, and I knew where every dollar was going, and every dollar had a job, which I think is, as to your point, I think that that's what's important about this is it's a budgeting system that allows every dollar to have a job. And then, as you know, a few years ago, I went and I decided that I needed a CFO and someone to help me with managing the money and scaling the business as we grew. And so I went and, one of the first things that he did when he looked at what we had going on is he started laughing and he said, we're going to go down in bank accounts. It's too expensive to have someone look at all of these bank accounts and settle all of them on a monthly basis. It's just crazy. And so, now I'm down to, I think I've got 5 bank accounts now, which, all I did was I combined certain things, and it it definitely helps. And I do use a spreadsheet now for part of it so that I know where the allocation is. Um, I'm not one that can look at things in the past and know what's going to happen in the future. I have to have some sort of a budget. And this is the simplest way to budget for me. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I again, I went to 7. That seems to be my sweet spot. My wife, full disclosure, is a CPA and works at a it's at least a high millions, probably $1 billion company. So she's a controller there. She does different finances than we'll ever do, obviously. And she kind of looks at it. She does a lot of that the books for me. But she's gotten to the point now where she just, grins and does it. But in her world, it's crazy to do. But in my mind, it's the only way to do it for right now, at least. And what resonates with me is it's okay to spend this money, and it's okay to not, and it's perfectly okay to not touch this other money. Like, I never want to dig into my profit. And there's a difference between the profit and the owner's pay. And the way he talks about it is, owner's pay, you're doing a job, you should get paid for that job. And making sure that you are getting paid for that job is important. And then the profit, and it's been a little while, and how I do it, and I think it's how he does it too, is every 2 or 3 months, I'll take and shave off half of that. I don't know, somewhere in there they told us to shave off half of it. And then you do have a little bit for a slush fund. And then you do it again in 3 months, you shave off half of it, or monthly or whatever. Well, every so often we go on vacation, and that becomes the money that we use for vacation. So we shave that off, and we do that. Or we'll use it for extra investments. This time of year, we're going to use it for extra investments, before we do our taxes. So it has a duty and a job, and you follow it. And it's been so helpful for me, and I think it's helpful for other people as well if they take a moment to read through it. And I had to read through it a couple times before I really got it. And I'll be honest, the numbers were changing a lot, the allocations were changing a lot, and sometimes I still occasionally borrow from one account to the other. But the beauty is I'm borrowing from my own money. You know what I mean? Which
Right.
not I'm not to the point where I'm up a creek here and trying to fund it from something else. So,
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I too, I think that that's just part of the deal. There are going to be times when you have to move, you know, you rob from Peter to pay Paul.
mhm.
But the good news is that I do have the ability to do that. And, like you, to me, it's kind of like the walk of shame if I have to pull out of the profit account. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's
100%.
it's anything to not touch that account.
Yeah. And a lot of what he says too in the book is you've you've got to start with something. So even
Right.
if you spend all of your money, you start with 1%. So if
Yep.
it's, $1,000, you throw $100 in this profit account, and then it's something. Wait, is that right? $1,000? I guess $10 would be 1%. So
Yep.
you'd put, at least $10 in this account, because otherwise, what are you doing it for? And then you got to figure out, okay, I need more income, but also at the same time, I need to, mitigate my expenses. And, you can only do so much on both of those sides. You can't cut everything, and you can't go out and just manufacture money. So start with something and then increase it. And I think he talks about that as well. Every month go up 1% or this or that or whatever to get to that point. And it's not a straight line. And business is not a straight line. You're not, going to go straight up. You're going to have these times where you backpedal and different things like that.
Well, and I think, I mean, what it does too is it forces me to think about, not only, oh, should I spend this money or, oh, this money's earmarked for this, so it's okay to spend it. But the other thing is that if things are getting tied in, I have an account that's fuel and maintenance is what I call it today. And if things are getting tied in that account and something, you know, like you were mentioning earlier, I mean, I try and keep a spare part for just about an entire truck on my shelf to where that I'm not waiting. Certainly things that I have to wait for more than 2 or 3 days to get, if I need that part, I'm going to try and have a spare on the shelf. Well, there are times where, okay, I just had this repair and it cost X amount of money, and maybe that account isn't to a point where I feel like I can just go spend that money. So then I'll let it build up and I'll go buy those parts. I just make a list of, okay, here's what I need next from that account. And so it keeps me in a position where I I can see those things and it gives me some foresight that maybe somebody else with, as you said, a business mind would already know, oh, look, I'm going to put this off and I'm going to do this. I need it spelled out a little bit more for me. And this helps to do that.
Some of the mistakes that I've made as I was going through the process was I tried too much to keep, how do I want to say this? I tried too much to just willy nilly changing the percentages. And I would just go, oh, well, I'm going to, boom, I need to do that. And I think what I learned is I just change them more subtly. And there has to be a reason for changing the percentages. It takes a while to get it dialed in. And I'd like to have my profit higher. I'd like to have, my expenses a little bit lower. But it's a process, and it's not, and for me at least, I was too willy nilly in the beginning and just made those quick adjustments, and that's not how I think it's recommended. But to have that emergency fund, Dave Ramsey always talks about personal finance to having, an emergency fund. Well, your business has got to have an emergency fund too, or else you're setting yourself up for a potential disaster. Now, can that emergency fund kind of masquerade as a profit a little bit, maybe, but that's not ideally how you want to do it. You want to have another fund that is there, and I don't know if it's, what do you think a good percent amount would be for that? Running 3 or 5 trucks. Do you try to keep 10,000 in there? Do you try to keep six?
Not, so here's the thing for me. My emergency fund, because when you think about what emergencies are we going to run into, generally the biggest emergency that I'm going to run into is when a truck breaks down. And so for me, what I try and do is a minimum in that account is what the most I've spent on a repair is. So for me, I had a transmission that went out on a truck that I had to have fixed. That was about 10 grand. And so that's the minimum in that account for me. Now, other people are going to have other numbers, and it kind of depends. It was different when I had, a truck and a trailer versus having 4 trucks. There's just differences in needs there. And as my income has gone up, it's easier to continue to allocate a percentage to that. And the beauty of doing these things in percentages is that as that revenue has gone up, the amount of, even if the percentage doesn't change that goes into that account, the amount of money that goes into that account on a semi-monthly basis changes and goes up as well. And so that's kind of the beauty of this. Now, I my understanding was to start at, I think he says to start at 1 or 2%. I mean, whatever, to keep it small. He says you're just starting out, so keep it small. And then you look at like your operational account and you go, you know what? I wonder if I can take a percent off of that and move it to profit. And so then profit goes from 2 to 3 and operational goes from, 30 to 29, you know, I mean, and so it's a really smart system. It's a smart way of doing things. And I wish that I had done it from day one and had those basics in place. Obviously, it's worked out okay, but I think that my life would have been easier if I had implemented this from day one.
I agree, and I think it's looking out for yourself. I mean, our business is set on customer service, customer service, customer service. We're always thinking of everybody else or thinking of our employees, doing what's right for our employees. This is doing what's right for you, for your business, to make your business worthwhile and to make it something that you're benefiting from. And he talks about it. He goes, there's a lot of rich business owners and there's a lot of bankrupt business owners. And which pile, which hill do you want to climb and go after? And it's not easy, but if you have this plan and you have this trajectory that you're trying to do, as long as you're working towards getting better and being more fiscally responsible and financially responsible, I think that's a plus. And again, that's just how my mind works. It was too hard to look at that and go, oh, look, we got 30,000 in the account. But to try to figure out what you have to do and where that's all got to go, it was just not going to work for me in my mind. So
Well,
um,
and here's so the other thing is that one of the sayings that you hear in business a lot is, sales solves everything. Um, I mean, the difference today with a 4 truck operation versus me in a truck pulling a trailer, if something happens today, you know, I mean, a day's revenue will cover just about any repair that I could have.
mhm.
And that's a good feeling to know that worst case scenario is okay, we're going to go out with 3 trucks, we're going to work really hard, and we're going to make enough revenue to pay for this repair for truck number 4. Now, we don't
Right.
have to do that because we've been doing this system, but it's good to know that you have that flexibility. And like everything in business, your problems change. And, I remember when I first started, it was a big thing. Should I get a cell phone to put in the second truck, or should I just make do with what we have? Today
hmm
it's like, I mean, I wouldn't think twice about that type of decision today. It's just
Because
done.
you've got, yeah, well, because the money's earmarked for that, or
Right.
it's and not specifically for a cell phone, but it's for communications. You've got to,
Right.
for the operational expenses, one of the line items is communications, and it's in there. Um,
Yep.
but it does give you
Yep.
the red light, green light, and that's also helpful,
Yep.
because we can, they talk about in the book at one point the guy was talking about how they go on like a 2 week spending freeze or something. I forget. Do you remember that part of the book? And
I
I don't
I
remember
don't.
exactly how they did it. Like we have to buy gas. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't not. But as far as other things, he went on like a spending freeze, and that's how they would manage their thing. And I'm doing a terrible job on this one, so we probably should cut that out. But anyways, it kind of it was a I remember it being really insightful and really helpful to
Well,
just think about those things.
yeah. So I think the bottom line on this, if I was going to sum up our conversation here, I think that the bottom line is if you're in this business or getting ready to start this business or another business, certainly with recurring revenue, and we've always talked about the consistency and how recurring revenue helps financially in every way. But get the book, buy the book, listen to the book, because you're right, there are other things that are mentioned in when Mike reads the book on the audio version. But this is helpful. And if you're starting a business or you're in business and you want to improve and do better, I would suggest that every entrepreneur read this, listen to it, and implement what you want. It's not going to hurt anything. But yeah, it certainly has helped me a lot. And I know in discussing these things with you, it's helped you a lot as well.
100%.
So do you have anything else you'd like to add to that, Mike?
No, I agree 100%. And, to be honest with you, that'll be a book that I have a trip coming up the end of this week. I think I'll hit play on that and listen to it again. Because with all books and all learning, you pick up other things at different times. And when the last time I listened to this book, I was probably 3 years ago, and I'm in a different place now. And I'm sure there's some things I can learn as an advanced Mike Walker than I was when I was a novice Mike Walker. So, but yeah, I would agree. And hopefully we helped you out. I know I rambled a little bit because it has been a little while since I listened to the book, but I think it's, the more I think about it, it's I still use it today, 6 years later. So it's definitely recommended that you take a moment and also, learn from it, do some learning, and it'll help your family. It'll be better for your family. And we appreciate you. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe, and certainly share it. We would appreciate that as well. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mike.
Well, Ben, that's a wrap on another episode of The Route to Revenue. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would hit like, subscribe, and leave us old guys a comment about what we did well. And if we did anything wrong, can it and keep it to yourself.
If today's strategy sparked some ideas for your business, don't keep them to yourself. Share this episode with a fellow entrepreneur who could benefit from these insights.
Remember, building a recurring revenue business, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Take one actionable step from today's discussion and implement it in your business this week.
Want to connect with us between episodes? Find us on Facebook or at our website. We'd love to hear how you're applying these concepts in your own home service business.
And until next time, keep building those recurring revenue streams and stay on the route to revenue.
The route to revenue.
Nice, Ben.